Hello and welcome. This is Betty with Betty Franks Art, and today I'm going to be showing you how I created these two on canvas. They measure 36 by 36 inches. So as usual, my process to get started is to just put down some marks on the canvas. It's my way of loosening up and kind of connecting with the canvas as well. This is something that is not going to show up on the final piece, and I know I get a lot of questions about why do I even bother to do this if it's not going to show up. And for me, it's not all about what you can see, but rather what my process is and how I connect with my artwork and how I connect with a process to create my artwork. So although you may not see it, I know it's there, and honestly, I can't create a piece without doing this, without doing these specific steps. If I just start with putting down paint, it just feels wrong to me. And I would have to stop myself and go back to doing the mark making. So I think all of us create a process that we like to use over time that works for us, that we feel comfortable with, and that's perfectly okay. And sometimes, might try something a little bit different, but for the most part, I do have a process and I really enjoy my process, and it has been working for me. So after my mark making, and if you're interested in my mark making tools, I will include a link to my favorite art supplies and you can check those out there. But most of them are pencils, regular pencil, Prismacolor pencils. I like to use Neocolor 2 crayons as well, and Neocolor 1 crayons. So a variety of different mark making tools. And then I like to continue the process by applying paint, and my usual first color is black. Sometimes I'll mix it with other colors, sometimes I'll take it directly out of the jar. And again, the black really doesn't show up a lot, as you saw in those photos before. It doesn't really show up in that final, except for bits and pieces poking out here and there, and that's what I like. So in order for me to achieve that, I need to put paint everywhere. Right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to use up some paints that I have in a tube. Those are, I think, Liquitex or Golden paints, and I've had them forever. So I just squeezed them directly onto the canvas, and now I'm taking a brush dipped in a little bit of gesso, which is my white. I like to use gesso for my white paint, and just kind of spreading that out. Now, I do often get asked, why do I use gesso for my white instead of just using like titanium white, which I do have a jar of it somewhere there on my table. But the reason I love to use it is, one, it's the color that I use the most of, so I go through a lot of it. And so price-wise, I love to use it because it's less expensive. Here's some more in a tube that I'm squeezing out. Okay, going back to the gesso. So the other reason I love to use it is because gesso kind of has a tooth to it, and when I continue to use it in my painting, I continue to build up that texture, and it also creates it makes my paints very flat, which I believe that Nova color paints, the paints that I'm using, are already pretty much flat, as opposed to having a shine to them. But I really like it because I use white in almost every color, it creates this consistency all the way across all my colors. And is that super important? Maybe not, because in the end I end up using a spray fixative to fix my marks, and then also I will use 2 coats of varnish. So in the end, my canvas will have a consistent feel to it, or a look to it, in terms of varnishes. But just using the gesso throughout, I've just really enjoyed the way I can continue to add texture and build that up. So anyway, that's my reason for liking to use gesso. And I just squirted some out on my palette. Whoops. Well, that happens sometimes too. I think I was trying to move that one over a bit so I can get the sides, because I like to paint the sides of all my canvases, and those were kind of squeezed together a little bit tight. All right, so going back to that gesso that I squeezed out in the bottle, that's actually a Liquitex gesso bottle that I love to use. I used Liquitex gesso for years, and I think it was a couple of years ago that I switched to Nova Color gesso, which was almost identical to the Liquitex, except for it was much more affordable, and I buy it by the gallon. And so I just use a funnel and I just pour it into the Liquitex bottle because it's just more convenient that way. All right, here I've got Indian yellow, one of my favorite yellows. And although I'm kind of taking it directly out of the jar, I already had paint on my brush. So not only am I double dipping, but I'm also kind of mixing my colors as I go. And yes, I'm a total double dipper. If you look into any of my jars, you'll find other colors in there too, which I'm just not a very clean and organized painter, because for me, it's all about painting and not about keeping clean and organized. If I was to stop and have to make sure that I was keeping clean and organized, I think it would really take away from my ability to intuitively create my pieces. So I kind of throw that to the side and just double dip if I want to double dip and not worry about it. So my first layers, I like to start with either warm colors or cool colors. So on this day, and it really doesn't matter, but on this particular day, I did choose to go with cool colors, meaning the blues and the greens. I use yellow for both warm and cool colors. Purple also falls into the cool color category. So the reason I do this is so that I'm not creating mud unless I specifically want to and I want to create a neutral brown color. This allows my colors to stay more vibrant and more clear, and it's just something I started doing a number of years ago, and it's really worked for me. By keeping my colors separated, in the end, I just have much more vivid colors. Now the other thing you'll notice is I use a pretty small brush even on a large painting, and one of the reasons for this is I absolutely love the process of putting paint on canvas or on paper or whatever. I just love that whole feeling of filling in every little bit of it. And if I was to use a large brush, I would kind of take away that ability to add paint as I go, because with a large brush, you're just covering a large area. Now, the other reason I like to do it is because I just love having all of these different marks on my canvas so that let's go back a step. So my inspiration comes from my love for flowers, my love for fields of flowers, and that's really what I'm painting is that love for fields of flowers. And so by being able to use a smaller brush, I'm creating all of these, quote unquote, smaller flowers and larger flowers. Also fences. I love old fences, especially ones that are falling down. I love stepping stones, so sometimes you'll see me make some marks that look like stepping stones. So I'm incorporating a variety of different marks that I see in nature that I absolutely love. And so how do I know this? How did I figure this out? I guess really the way I figured it out was I started paying attention to what I was noticing. And really the first time that I started creating or noticing that I was creating in this specific style was in the spring of 2018. And it was when I was visiting my parents in Croatia, and they live on an island on the Adriatic. And in the spring, there are wildflowers blooming everywhere. And my mom and I would go for walks through the village or up above. Just behind them is more of a mountainous area, if you want to call that mountainous, hilly. It's where the previous generations had land where they would plant their potatoes and other vegetables, because there was very little room near their home in the village. So a lot of folks would have land up back behind them. So anyway, my mom and I go for walks, and she loves flowers too, and she would always pick flowers, and we would make little bouquets as we were walking, and we would bring those home and had them all over the house, these cute little bouquets. And so it was during that spring that I was creating, and I think I realized a little bit later that that's what I was creating. I was creating or recreating this love I had for these flowers we were picking and all these flowers we were seeing everywhere. So I have my mom to thank for that. And from there, I just started creating in this style on a continuous and consistent basis. All right, so I did switch. It was another day that I came in. Hard to tell because I kind of wear a uniform painting gear that I change into when I get to my studio. My studio is in downtown San Jose, California, and it used to be an old canning building where they would can foods. And so the building is extremely old, and it is not very warm. Up above, I don't have a roof in my studio space. It actually opens up to windows from the cannery. And so I have a lot of good light coming in, especially during the spring and summertime. But it gets really cold. So I tend to make sure that my heater is running all the time when I'm in there during the cooler weather. But of course, during the summertime, it gets really hot in there. And I don't mind that because I love the heat. I have a hard time with the colder weather. All right, so on this next day, what I'm doing here is I'm doing mark making again. So my process is once it dries overnight, then I like to come in and just kind of treat it like I'm starting all over again. I'm reconnecting with my canvas, and I'm throwing down marks, especially this early in the process. At this point, I only put down that one layer, and now I'm switching to warm colors. So red is probably one of the only few colors that I like to pull directly out of the jar because I don't really like the way it looks when I mix it with white. If I mix it with yellow, we all know I'm going to get orange. Sometimes I'll mix it with another red, like a quinacridone magenta or something like that, that gives it a little bit of a deeper color. But other than that, I like to just pull them directly out of the jar. And the paints I like to use, if you are just starting to follow me and you're not aware of the paints that I like, because I talk about them in pretty much all of my videos, they are called Nova Color Paint. It's Nova, and I'm going to include a link in my show notes and also include a link in the very first comment under the video so you can find all my links there as well. And they are a Southern California company. They only sell direct to you, so there is no middleman. There is no going to the store to find them. You can find them on their website, and you can order directly from them. Now, keep in mind that they only ship to the United States and Canada. They do not ship overseas. So I'm sorry if you're overseas and you would like to try them. Unfortunately, they don't ship. All right, so I've got some yellow going on there. I'm using up the last of looks like my Indian yellow. I think I've got another jar on the shelf somewhere. And I'm using a palette knife here. So sometimes I do like to switch things up and use a palette knife to spread my paint. And I feel that it's a bit more organic that way. Instead of, with brush strokes, especially if you're using, a filbert brush or even with a round brush, the lines, the edges of it are very straight. So with a palette knife, I feel like I can get some more of a organic feel to my quote-unquote field of flowers. All right, so you can see I've got some pink going there. I probably mixed in some quinacridone red or quinacridone magenta, which I love to use with white, with my gesso to create a pink color. So I'm just filling in as I go. You saw earlier I did some larger round circles, but for the most part, I'm keeping this one more feeling like flowers, that you see in a distance. If you squint your eyes and you look way in the distance at flowers, that's kind of what you're going to be seeing here. Now, some of my other videos, you can check those out too. I've got more larger organic shapes or larger circles representing flowers in larger shapes and more distinct. So check those out for kind of a slightly different style of painting that I have. So I do feel like I've got two different styles, this one being one of them and the other one being these larger organic shapes still representing my love for flowers and fields of flowers, but represented a little bit in a different way. So brushes, I like to use, I think these are like size 12, I want to say, 10, 12. And I do have a link to brushes if you want to check those out. But lately I've just been going over to, if you're in the United States, we have a craft store called Michael's. And I've been buying their, I think it's called Level 2 acrylic brushes. They're long handle brushes. And I've just been trying them out and trying to see, what do I like. I really think brushes are a very personal thing, and you need to find brushes that you like. And that just means you need to buy a variety of different brushes. I've used chip brushes also that you can buy like at the hardware store. You can buy them at Michael's or craft stores or anywhere, but there's a variety of different brushes, and you need to figure out what feels comfortable to you, holding it in your hand, the type of marks that it makes, the type of brush strokes that it makes. So test out a few different ones and see what you like best. So earlier, a couple of minutes ago, I was trying to use my spray bottle to just spray some water on the canvas to create drips. I love creating drips. They're those things that you can't control, and I love having some of that in my artwork. So those marks that I just now made, you can, in the canvas on the right towards the middle bottom, which I just kind of covered up. But anyways, that was my love for stepping stones. That I kind of obliterated pretty quickly. So here's step 2, kind of day 2 in the process in terms of the colors are changing. Now what's interesting is I turned my canvas, and I normally never turn my canvas. So this was a day of, let's try something different. And here I am trying to spray bottle out of a really small travel size spray bottle because my large one's not working. I need to buy something else. Okay, so we're back. I let those drips dry. So I'm not sure if I just if this is another day or if I just worked on something else and then came back to this. Again, same uniform, so hard to tell. All right, so putting out some colors again. And there's I think that's a size 12. It's either a filbert, flat, or round. Can't tell from here. So the way that I hang my canvas on my wall, so my painting wall, is that I have long screws. I think they're like 3-inch screws in my studs. So I think most across the US and most of Canada, I think walls are built with studs and 2x4 studs. So what I did was I put long screws into the studs, and then the screws stick out about a 1/2 inch, and that allows me to just hang my canvas right onto them. The studs are spaced, I believe, 16 inches across here in California. So it works out great when you're working larger like this. Certainly doesn't work out if you're going to work small. And if you put, a long screw into the wall without a stud, eventually that kind of loosens up and it's not going to stay in place for you. So on this day, I've come back to my cool colors, and I really love teal, turquoise, whatever you want to call it, one of my favorite colors. So I'm definitely incorporating it into this painting. And as you can tell, I have a love for all color. And honestly, sometimes it's so hard for me to narrow it down. I did give that a try. I went to Croatia back in, I'm recording this in, let's see, the end of January. So I was in Croatia in December and part of January. And I did force myself to try some limited palettes. I did that on paper, and to be honest with you, I really loved them. And not something that I usually do, but I really love the way they turned out. So this one's going to be very colorful, but I'm thinking about maybe doing a large one with a limited palette. So let me know in the notes below if you'd be interested in seeing something like that. And speaking of notes below, feel free to leave questions for me. I am always happy to answer those. I check those every couple of days to see if there's questions or comments, and I respond to pretty much all of them. The other thing I'd love to ask you to do is, if you're enjoying my videos or this video, if you could subscribe to my channel just by clicking the bell down below, and that way you're notified when I'm ready to upload another one. This year, 2021, I plan to upload a lot more frequently than I have in the past. So you'll be notified more often this year about new videos. And then also, if you could, let's see, hit the like button down below if you're enjoying this video. That really helps me a lot, and it also helps other folks, because what happens is when you like a video, it lets YouTube know that people find value in the video, and then they serve it up to more people so that more folks can get a chance to see it. All right, so still sticking with that teal. And when I'm creating, I like to mix my colors. So this isn't a teal directly out of the jar. This is teal with some white. This is, I think I use blue-green as well, another one of my favorite colors by Nova. So it's kind of a mix of those, and then it's whatever was on my brush too. As you could probably tell, I don't clean my brush very often. I like to keep some color on there so that I am harmonizing my colors as I go. And just as I said that, I saw that I dipped my brush in the water. That's because I'm switching to more of a purple, so I don't think I wanted all that teal on there. So see those purple marks I just did up above? That's my love for stepping stones. Those represent stepping stones for me. Not sure that those showed up at the very end. I think I really struggled those towards the end because it wasn't working, and I'll show you that later. And then see those lines I just did way off to the right side? That's my love for fences. So when you see those skinny lines like that, that usually represents fence lines. So going back to, if you are just starting to create and you're trying to figure out what is it that you are trying to express on canvas, on paper, start noticing what you notice. And what I mean by that is, when you are out in nature, or if you're in the city and you're walking around and you're looking at stuff, what are you looking at? Where is your eye drawn? Where do you go and you say, oh, I love that? Or you subconsciously probably say it, or something just makes you happy. Start noticing what those things are. What is making you happy that you're looking at? And I think that, if you start noticing it, or even journaling, just writing down, these are the things I noticed today, I think you're going to start seeing a pattern, and you're going to start understanding what it is that attracts you and what you love, because all of us are very unique, and we all bring something different and unique to our paintings, based on what we love, but also based on our background, on our history, on the journey that we've taken. So we're all very unique in what we are presenting. So start thinking about that. If you're not sure, what it is that you are trying to express through your abstract paintings. So here I'm trying to bring in some lighter colors. So as I go through this process of layering, I start looking at my values as well. So values, I would say, are even more important than color. And the reason for that is if you look at the value scale 1 to 10, and you've got something that is really, really light next to something that's really, really dark, your eye is going to go there first. Now, most paints directly out of the jar tend to be in the value range of, let's say, 4, 5, 6, like right in the middle. So when you look at a painting that is in that value range, then there's nothing that pops out. There's nothing that stands out and that draws you in. But if you take your painting, and what I tend to do is when I come towards the end, I take a picture of it and then I convert it to black and white so that I can see what my values look like. And I think you'll see that in some of the other videos that I've done. Now, the reason it's so important is because you want your viewer to be pulled in. You want them to look at it and say, oh, wow. They may not know why they're saying that, but it's most likely because your values look really good. So again, you want some really light areas and you want some really dark areas. And one way that I do that is I look at what I've already created and I say, okay, what area is light already? I'm going to make it even lighter. Now, I never take white, pure white, and put it on. There's always something on my brush still, or I just tap my brush slightly into a color so that the white is not a pure white, because then it's not working with the rest of the painting. And so in order for it to work well with the rest of the painting, but yet still stay very light, just add just a touch of color to it. And now for the dark areas, I look at, okay, what areas do I already have that are dark that I can darken even more? So whether that be with, I don't tend to put black sitting on top of everything at the very end, but I will mix it with some other colors to darken it enough so that it creates a very dark area. Now don't hold me to that, because sometimes I have been known to put a little bit of black at the very end if I feel like I don't have enough of it. So here we are starting again, and you can see I am just going at it. I am doing my mark making again because I'm not done yet. So I'm okay with putting down marks everywhere. And these marks now, because we're coming towards the end of it, these marks are going to show up on the final piece. Now, not all of them, but a lot of them will, because I still have a little ways to go in terms of putting down some more paint. And I'm working on these two together. Not that I'm trying to sell them together. Certainly if they sell together, that's fabulous. But I want to work with them together so that if they do sell together, they work together. But then towards the end, I'm looking at the composition individually because I want them also to be able to sell individually. So there's a little bit more work involved in that when you're working on two pieces like this. I just put some lotion on my hands. The trick to getting paint off your hands quickly at the end of a painting session is to put some lotion on them. It could be any lotion, doesn't have to be anything specific. I found that any kind of lotion will work. All right, so I've got my line of white. I always like to put down a line of white instead of a puddle of it so that I can dip my brush into different parts of that line and not mix my colors if I'm working with a variety of colors. And as I work towards the end here, I'm not sticking to my, only work with cool colors or only work with warm colors, because towards the end here, I'm looking at composition, I'm looking at the colors, and I start going back and forth. And so that line of white really helps me to keep from creating a muddy color by dipping into a pure white. So the plastic I've got on my wall and also on my table there is 4 mil, M-I-L, plastic, and that's the thickness of the plastic. So it's not super thick, but it's not that really thin painter's plastic either. It's thick enough that I will keep it on my wall for years. I've been in this studio space for just over a year, and I never changed it out. Even the one on my palette there, I'm still using the same one. So I don't like to throw plastic into the landfill if I can avoid that. So I reuse it, and I just simply peel off the paint once it dries, and I've got several layers on there, then it's easy to peel up. Sometimes I procrastinate before a painting session and I spend time just peeling my paint. There's something enjoyable about peeling paint. All right, so here I am adding more white. Again, not a pure white, it's dipped into a color, a little bit of a color. But I'm trying to create more contrast. So if you look at the one on the right, much more contrast going on than the one on the left. And I'm trying to balance that contrast too. So I've got white in several areas on the one on the right. And now I'm going to work on the one on the left. If you're on social media and want to follow me, I am on Instagram pretty much almost daily, definitely in stories. I post constantly in stories. And then you can also find me on Facebook. I'm going to include links to that, or you can just look me up under Betty Franks Art and follow me over there. I post pretty regularly on both of those platforms. I'm also on Pinterest. If you're on Pinterest, I have to say I don't post there as regularly as I do on the others, but you can find a lot of my art there. And of course, you can find me on YouTube. So here, working my way through this process, there's going to be a lot more standing back now, looking at the composition, trying to figure out, is it balanced? Is it working together? Are the colors working together? You can see me often come back right over something that I've done before. There I was starting to add a brighter yellow, but decided no, that's not what I wanted. Going right over areas I've already done, both in terms of composition and color. Just a variety of, or just slightly different color. So because I mix my colors as I go, it's really hard to recreate an exact color. But I find that it adds a lot more interest. So if I already had a yellowish area and I come back in with a different yellow and put it over that, I tend to leave the edges allowing the previous color to show through. And I think you'll see that at the very end when I do some close-up shots, and you'll see around the edges a different color. And so I'm not entirely covering it. I'm still allowing some of those previous layers to show through. I think one thing that's been consistent since I started painting, when I was 50, just before my 50th birthday. I was doing these little mixed media pieces. This year, well, right now I'm 57, so I've been at this for about 7 years, and it's been a fabulous journey. But what I was trying to say there is, when I first started, I was doing these little mixed media pieces on paper, like 4x6-inch paper, 5x7-inch paper, and they were so much fun. I was stamping and doodling, and let's see what else. I was using I already said stamps, didn't I? Stencils. I was using stencils. I was just doing a variety of things, and I was learning how to create layers. And that was something that I absolutely loved, was creating all these layers. And you can see just bits and pieces of previous layers peeking through. And for me, that is very much like life and getting to know a person. For example, if you go to a party and you meet somebody for the first time, you're not going to know everything about them right away. They're not going to tell you everything about them, but they're going to give you bits and pieces about their history, their journey, their life story. And I see my paintings that way. They all have a journey, a history, and you can see bits and pieces of it here and there, but not all of it. I cover up some of it because I don't want you to see some of those areas. I'm not going to share everything with you, but you're going to get a little insight to, oh, there was something there before. There's some depth there. There's some history. There's a story there. And that's the other thing I love about my paintings and why I create all of these layers. I know a lot of folks say, oh, that's such a waste of paint. I never, never see it as a waste of paint, because paint is my way of expressing myself. And if I started looking at it as, oh my God, paint is precious and I have to be careful how I use it, then I'm not going to be able to freely express how I'm feeling about my love for fields of flowers. And so, and that's the other reason I love Nova color paints, is because the colors are gorgeous and they are so affordable. I never worry about how much paint I put on my palette. I tend to put too much down, to be honest with you. And sometimes I keep an extra canvas nearby where I can just offload anything left on my palette, so that I don't feel like I'm totally wasting it. But there are times that I've let paint just, a pile of paint dry on my palette, and I don't think twice about it, because again, paint is the way I express myself, and I need to use it freely and without any worry at all. So I'd say at this point, we're probably about 75% done. It's starting to come together. I'm looking at, as I mentioned before, balancing it. How do I balance this so that it can stand on its own? Each one can stand on its own, and also they can work together. And then also making sure I paint all the sides as I go. It's really hard to come to the very end, and then I always check all my sides, and then to try to match up the color. I never do. I get close, but it's not perfect. So as I'm painting, I'm trying to be careful that I'm also putting paint on all the edges. And I love painting the edges. I just love the way it looks when you look at a painting from its side, and it's like a little mini painting on the sides. So here I'm using a rigger, which is a script brush. You'll find it on my favorite art supplies, and I love using it to make very fine lines. Or if I press down harder, I can make slightly thicker lines with it, but it's great for making circles and, again, lines, different types of lines. Right there, I'm making some circles, and then I wipe them back a little bit because I don't like them to be perfect circles. So, and right there, I'm also using my fingers to wipe some of those marks back a bit. I just find it more interesting when you've got lines there, but they're not all perfect, and that kind of helps give it that push and pull where, some of them, they look like they're up more towards you, and some of them are being pushed back a bit, and by wiping them a little bit away, they're kind of somewhere in the middle. I just feel that adds a lot more interest that way. So that upper area I really struggled with connecting. I think it goes through a few more changes. That blue, I love that blue, tealish blue color, but in the end I don't think it worked quite as well as I wanted it to. But that's the beauty of acrylic paints. I just paint right over it, or like I did in my previous video, I sprayed it all down with water and wiped it all up and continued on. All right, so I finished that session, back again, putting cream on my hands, hand lotion, and excited to bring this one home, which it's getting there. It's not quite there yet. So lightening up some areas. And I do take pictures of these, when I'm done with a session, I'll take a picture so that I can look at them on my phone, and that really helps me figure out, what I need to work on. It helps to do that, you can do it right away, but it really helps if you take it home or, look at it a few hours later, and your eyes just look at where your eyes go immediately, and that's going to help you figure out that that's an area that needs work. So I use a variety of different yellows. I think I've got like 4 different types of yellows that I like to use. You know, I'll put a link below. I just created a new page on my website that is my favorite Nova colors. And it's not all of my colors that I use, but it's a good start for folks. They're kind of like my go-to colors for most of my paintings. So I'll include a link below for that so that you can see which colors I like to use. Right there, I was kind of picking off some paint there that dry. Sometimes there's little dried up paint nibs, or I don't even know what to call them, but sometimes I remove those if they're sticking out a little bit too much. I've got a variety of blue colors that I use as well, but there's always, you know, a few favorites, just colors that I am most attracted to. Not to say that they're the best colors, because I think it's different for everybody. Like I was talking about before, you know, we all come from different experiences and backgrounds and stories, and we love something different. I just can't imagine a world where we all love the same thing. I think that would just be horrible. So I'm sure there's a collection of colors that you love as well. All right, so here's kind of a, I don't know if this is Perol red or red, cadmium medium red, which are my 2 favorite reds, but I'm coming in and just brightening up some of those red areas so that they pop a little bit more. And I'm doing that with a really small brush because, again, I don't want to put huge brush strokes on here. So I'm looking at, you know, I want my eye to come in from the right and exit to the left, but also want it to kind of move down the canvas as well, if that makes sense. And there I've got some water that I just squirted onto that red to get some drips going. And I'm probably going to clean up some of those drips. So when I do drips, I don't always leave them just as they are. I let them drip down, and then I sometimes come in and I just clean them up a little bit with a rag. And what I mean by that is I just kind of absorb some of it so that it's not a continuous line of drips. We'll see if I do it here. I'm pretty sure I do. But I like to just wait a few minutes to let it dry a little bit. Another fun thing to do is to spray a bunch of water in an area where you just recently painted, and then use a rag to absorb it, and then it lifts the colors, and it looks really cool because then it shows some of the previous colors. There we go, there's the rag, and I'm just cleaning it up a bit, but yet leaving a little bit of drips here and there. So one thing I can tell you right now that's bothering me, and I know I end up addressing it, is those 2 light blue areas above the 2 red areas. They're too much equal in size. So the blue on the left one and the blue on the right one are equal in size. So I'm going to be addressing that. And then the red areas, they're also much too equal in size. So hitting it with my hairdryer here so that I can get some paint over it pretty quickly. And multitasking and painting on the other side. Can you tell I am so impatient for paint to dry? And again, that's the reason I love acrylics, because I really don't have to wait too long. I do need to hold that dryer up a little higher though. All right, so going over that area. So I did recognize, you know, those 2 red areas. Again, it's because if somebody bought these paintings together, then those 2, the 2 paintings, to me, I want to make sure that they're working together. And I felt like it wasn't. I think I just didn't like that red. I went over it with a more neutral color. So I'm trying to tackle those blue areas. I figure it out eventually. That's the fun part of creating is, you know, when I'm working on a canvas coming towards the end of a painting like this, I love the problem solving that is involved. So looking at it, trying to figure out what's working, what's not working, what colors are working, which colors are not working. I think that's the fun part is the problem solving. And I think that takes practice and it takes time to figure that out. It's certainly not something that I was able to figure out in the beginning. One thing that really helped me is when I looked at other paintings, I would look at them and say, okay, what do I like about this painting? What draws me in? What don't I like about it? And why don't I like that? So I think that's a really great exercise, especially if you spend a lot of time on Instagram or Pinterest where you're looking at photos of artwork. You know, give yourself the assignment of really kind of critiquing them in your own way and starting to learn, you know, what is it that you are liking about a specific painting, what draws you to it, what makes you happy about that painting, or look at one that you don't like and just really look at it and ask yourself, why don't I like this painting? You know, is it the colors in it? Is it the composition? Is it the style of painting? I think it's so important to know what you like, and just as equally important to know what you don't like, and so that you can bring that into your own paintings, and so that you can avoid things that you don't like and avoid doing that in your own artwork. There's so much to learn when you are learning to be a creative, and as I mentioned earlier, I've only been doing this for a very short 7 years, and that's not a long time, but I love it so much that I spend a lot of time researching and understanding, and I have to take that back a bit. I don't do a ton of research. I guess what I'm really saying is I'm looking at other artists and their creations, and I am always looking at what I love about them and what I don't, so that when I'm creating my own work, I can look at it with a more skeptical eye and look at, okay, what do I love about this and what don't I love about it, and how can I change that? I hope that information is helpful to you. It's a fun journey to be on, for sure, and I certainly have enjoyed the ups and downs of it. You know, in the beginning, it wasn't all that enjoyable. It was hard. It was hard figuring out, you know, what I like and what I don't like. Now, notice that white that I just added, I stopped just where that kind of grayish area is above, and then I realized, nope, I can't match it up perfectly, so I extended that white out even further. And those are some of the things I look for. You know, I don't want things to be even. I don't want to have my colors even with other colors that I've already put down. To me, that's just not very interesting. It's more interesting when it's not matching up. So I'm back to adding more light colors, looking at values. The one on the left, I don't think had as much value, changes in values as the one on the right. And like, for example, that upper corner, I probably have put down 7 or 8 layers of paint up there. And I'll do that until I get it right. And just adding more, I think adds more interest too. Lots more thinking at this stage. Every time I try to tackle that section of the canvas on the right and the canvas on the left, I keep messing it up, because all I'm doing is I'm making it even on both sides. And I think I finally figure that out a little bit later. that's a good example of, I don't always know what I'm doing, so I'm just gonna put down some more. So here I'm trying to change the size of it so that gray area is not the same size as the gray area on the other canvas. And for you, maybe you don't even notice that, but again, that's something that really stands out for me, so I'm trying to figure out how to fix it. All right, so back again. See me peeling my palette. So I had several layers, and see, that came up pretty quickly. If there's only one or two layers of paint, it's much harder to peel back. So adding several layers of paint and letting that dry makes it really easy to peel. And I don't use it in my artwork. I know folks have asked me, why don't you save it and add it to your artwork? I've tried that, and I just didn't care for the way it looked. So I don't do it. Again, try everything. I have tried so many things in the past, especially when I was doing mixed media, and I would try all kinds of techniques and tools and processes, and figured out eventually, what I like and what works for me. So don't be afraid to try things. All right, tackling that upper area again, trying to figure out. There's always like one area of a canvas that just drives me crazy. Like I just can't figure it out, and I really spend a lot of time trying to make it work. Now, if you're interested in taking a workshop, in 2020, I had to cancel all of my in-person workshops. However, I did several live online sessions that were really great. I really enjoyed those. Had a lot of folks participate in the live sessions, but I have one available. My last one that I did is available as a recording. It's a 2-hour online workshop where I am teaching live online, and I'm answering a ton of questions and walking you through my process. I'm working on 18 by 24 inch paper, and I show you my steps from start to end. So if you're interested in something like that, it is available and for immediate access, and you actually watch it on YouTube via a private link. So if you're interested, I'll include a link to that as well, and you can check that out. So coming towards the end here, adding some, final marks here and there in terms of the colors, and just adding additional small marks. I'd say at this point I'm like 90 to 95% done. So that red up there wasn't, my eye was not liking where I was going, so I wanted to soften that out so that the red down below was more of the focal point. There's that area right there again. Can't seem to figure that one out. I like to also flip my brush around and make marks right into the wet paint. If I'm drying it, most likely I'm going to paint right over it. There you go. Lighten it up a bit. Yep, still haven't figured out. I'm trying to get the eye to continue. See how I covered that with, I close one eye and I cover it up with my hand to figure out if I should remove it or if it's working. And I decided that I didn't want it there. So I'm adding some green over it and actually making that blue area a bit smaller. And that those white marks, I'm not sure if I ended up keeping those or if they were just a little too white. I'm trying to match up that color there. Always hard to recreate my colors. So if you've been watching this all the way through, I just wanted to say thank you, thank you. I know it's one of my slightly longer videos. I tend to keep them up around an hour, and the only way to do that is to speed up the videos. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting with me for many, many hours watching me. But if you do want to watch me in slow-mo, you can certainly, I think if you're watching from a desktop now, I'm not sure on your phone, but if you're watching from your desktop, there's an icon gear below the video. If you click that, you'll have some options to slow down the video. Now, I recommend that if you slow down the video, you turn off the voice and turn on subtitles, because otherwise I am talking in slow-mo, which sounds pretty funny. So you can slow this down so that you can see more of my process in a slowed down version. And it really helps to, walk away from your painting. Sometimes I'll look at the back wall and then I'll look at it, or I'll just look down for a bit and then look up and see where my eye goes first. And that's when I know that's an area that I need to tackle. So as of this recording, these two pieces are available. I have gallery representation through a company called Gesso's Art House. They're in Los Gatos, California, and these two are with them right now. So I'll include a link below to all the pieces that I have with them that are available. All right, so here what I'm doing is I am just going to look at them by themselves and see if they are working or if they need some work. So when I look at it, the purple up on top is bothering me because my eye is competing with those purple stepping stones versus all of the teal down below and the red. So even the white. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I do this so that my eye is not competing and trying to figure out where the focal point is or how my eye should flow through the piece. Making some more marks on it as well. That's the rigger or the script brush that I'm using there. getting in those finer lines. And then sometimes I like to just offload my brush. That's what I'm doing there. And it just leaves a little bit of bits of paint here and there. Again, I find that so much more interesting. There we go, the purple. It's got to go. I think I finally decided that it's not working. But am I tackling it? No, not yet. All right, let's bring up the other one. There we go. Now this one's going to need a little bit of work. I'm actually kind of liking it from here, but I know that it needed a little bit more work. I like the red next to the teal. Those always look really nice together. Nope, that didn't work. I put down some circles and didn't care for them. So when I finish up with all of my mark making with the script brush and with the regular brushes, I also do some final mark making at the very end. So I'll be showing you that as well. I know we're kind of a distance away. It's a little hard to see all the detail that I'm putting into this. As I mentioned, I've got close-up photos at the very end. I also show you the very end with the video camera moving in close so that you can see some of the details. All right, so bringing them back together. Not bad. All right, so this is another day, and possibly I'm going to tackle those purple area, the purple stepping stones at the top there. There we go. I'm enhancing them. Oh no, that's not going to work. Yeah, well, that softened it out a bit. That's a maybe. I'm thinking, you can tell I'm just kind of stepping aside or stepping back and just trying to see. Now, another thing I like to do sometimes is to lighten up some paint that I just put down. I save all of those, the cardboard that comes with the canvases, and then I just press that into the wet paint to lift it up a bit. I'm still thinking about those purple stepping stones. And I know you're probably thinking stepping stones way up high. You know, if you look at this and think of it as a field of flowers and horizon should be at the top, I don't paint that way. Sometimes orange at the bottom represents my love for the sun, but it doesn't have to be in the upper quadrant of a painting. Just like my stepping stones are not always in the lower areas, they sometimes are up high. All right, so I'm not painting over those stepping stones, but I'm putting new marks on top of them, and that helps push them backwards. So pushing them to the back so that they don't stand out so much. And I was trying to figure out what color should I be putting up there to do that, and decided green was going to be the best one. So here I'm adding a little bit. Oh, that was green. I was thinking I was coming in with darker, but I think that's just a green color. Tone on tone. All right, next to each other. Looking better. I think I decided that they are done. I've got my pencils out, so I always like to start with pencil and start making marks again. Now at the end here, my mark making is much more intentional. So I'm not like just doing it all over the canvas. I'm looking for places where I want to add a little bit more interest. So I love my artwork to catch the person's eye from a distance, and then for them, when they walk up close to it, to get all these special little surprises of this additional mark making that you can see only close up. So I'm going to use pencils, Prismacolor pencils I love to use. And then, as I mentioned, I also like to use the, let's see, now it just escaped me. I should probably make a list of these. The Neocolor crayons I like to use as well. Now, most of these pencil marks are not water soluble, meaning that if something wet goes on them, they'll pretty much stay in place. But some of the mark making is water soluble, and again, meaning that if I put a liquid varnish right on top of it, it may obliterate the marks, or it may move them around a bit. So what I like to do when I'm completely done, and I allow the canvas to dry, usually for several days, depending on how hot it is, and then I'll come in with a fixative spray first, or sometimes if I have a varnish spray on hand, I'll use that. Either one works. Just lately I've been really liking the fixative. It's called Workable Fixative, and it's in my favorite art supplies. So I will spray that. That dries like within 15 minutes or so, and then it's ready for varnish. So I like to use Liquitex varnish. And on these, I decided to use a matte varnish. Lately, I've been just in the mood for matte varnishes for my larger pieces, but that's not always true. Sometimes I use satin, sometimes I use gloss. All right, so I signed that one on the right, and I just signed the one on the left. I like to sign in pencil. In case I sign crooked, I like to erase it and just re-sign it. And a few more pencil marks. All right, calling it done. So here I'm going to show you some close-up pictures via video, and then I've got some photographs that I will show you afterwards. So this gives you a chance to really see all of those layers and my pencil markings. I did some flowers there, flower petals, I guess, and more marks. There's pencil marks there. And again, these are things that you're going to see up close and not so much from a distance. Definitely see, I can see some of the marks that I made from the earlier, when I was coming close to the end. So some of those are showing through. Those are more the organic, see those black marks there? Those are from earlier layers. So really love the way these two turned out. They're just such happy pieces, and really show my love for fields of flowers and spring, summer, my favorite seasons. 100 degrees is perfect for me, so I certainly love that time of year. And the colors, flowers in full bloom. There's a larger flower there that I added. There's some white mark making from earlier. There's my signature in pencil. So that signature there is B. Krause, because I actually created these before I left for Croatia. So I created this one, I think it was in November 2020. I did change my name from Betty Krause Art to Betty Franks Art in January of 2021. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick tour here of my space. So there's my palette, and I like to just have my jars of paint available to me all around. That's a painting that's sold. Those two back there, work in progress. Need to bring them forward. I think those are 20 by 24. There's all my extra paints and supplies. and work in progress. See, that canvas there is where I offload my paints. And then you can see those two back there are sold. The smaller 24 by 24 is sold as well. The one in front here is available, and I have a video of that one. It's 60 by 60. This one is sold. I have a video of that one. That's a 60 by 60. This is a 60 by 48. It's still available, and I have a video of that one if you want to watch me create it. And the one down below, I'm just starting to finish up. And there's where I like to sit and look at my painting wall. You can see the rest of my studio there. It's a perfect spot to just take a look at what I'm working on. Really love these. Super happy with them. All right, so, oh, it looks like I accidentally added this video part a second time. Sorry about that. Okay, you get to see my video, excuse me, you get to see my studio space twice. I must have thrown in one more. I probably forgot that I did a video. There, now you can see my space from that direction. Oh, and there's the two pieces back there. So you get to see everything again. And so I've got screws in the walls all the way around my studio so that I can just hang these wherever I need to. So again, those two pieces right there, I also have on video, so if you want to watch me create them. And then I've got this, I think this one is a 36 by 48. Love this piece too. Those colors are wonderful. As I mentioned, this 24 by 24 sold recently, as did these two here. Those are 36 by 36 as well. And there's my back storage area. Aha, and this is the other piece, the 60 by 60 I was working on. And that one is, there's a video for that as well. So lots of videos for you to watch if you are new and haven't seen the others. All right, and there I am with the two pieces in my studio space, and there they are side by side. And I've got some close-up video, close-up pictures for you. So this is one of them, and I ended up naming these Shining Bright 1 and 2. So they just reminded me of flowers shining brightly. So nice close-ups. I think you can see a bit more detail in these now. So again, if you've been sticking this out all the way to the end, I so appreciate you. I know it's a longer video. There's a nice side view there. And again, if you haven't, subscribed to my channel and give me a thumbs up if you like this video. I really appreciate that. So there's the two, and there I am with my two pieces. So thank you again, and wishing you a wonderfully creative day.